My name is Boluwatife Jide-Olugbade, and I'm a graduate student studying public policy at Georgia Tech. I'll be discussing today the future of digital equity, charting the next phase of the Affordable Connectivity Program. Why this topic, you might ask? First, this topic emanates from one of the projects I worked on while interning with an internet service provider. And I believe this audience is a great platform to reach wider stakeholders involved in ACP, many of whom are part of ICANN. Second, it aligns with the overall goal of ICANN to provide accessible and globally connected internet. Today, I'll walk you through what the policy issue is, what policy options are being considered, and the recommended alternative to pursue. Affordable Connectivity Program, what is it? The Affordable Connectivity Program was a program in the United States that aimed at helping many low-income earners get connected to the internet. However, this program was discontinued because of lack of congressional funding and has limited the access of many millions of low-income households from the internet. And so today we would focus on how can we best address this. The background to ACP. ACP is an acronym for the Affordable Connectivity Program. As we all know, COVID-19 pandemic exposed the wide gap that existed in broadband access and affordability in different nations across the world, including in the United States. The US, specifically in addressing this, created the Emergency Broadband Benefits program that was aimed at helping many people get connected to the internet. This program was very successful, and so to extend the impact of this program, the Affordable Connectivity Program, ACP, was created so that it can help many more low-income earners have access to the internet. Unfortunately, ACP was ended about 3 years after. So what are the impacts, or what were the impacts of ACP before it ended? ACP actually served over 23 million low-income households, saving them about $30 monthly and some $75 monthly. Research shows over two-thirds of households that had inconsistent internet service or no internet service at all had internet service because of ACP. This is better reinforced through the charts. We can see that between 2019 and 2023, there was a huge jump within the low-income group that had access to broadband. Not just that, ACP actually generated so many economic benefits. It helped generate about 16 billion annual benefits to users of the service, which is about twice the amount it costs to provide this broadband access. So why did ACP end? ACP ended because of a political reason, and that's because there was lack of congressional appropriation. But underlying this is a lack of bipartisan support for the continuation of the program based on diverging opinions of the majority party that makes up Congress. On the one hand, Democrats believe that ACP has been very successful, if not the most successful program in addressing the issue of broadband affordability in the US and therefore should be continued. On the other hand, the Republicans believe that ACP is inefficient and allows for waste. So there was a contention about the efficiency of this program. Before ACP was discontinued, a survey showed that over 65% of ACP beneficiaries were afraid that they might lose their jobs if ACP were to be discontinued. There were 75% others that were afraid that they might no longer have access to important healthcare services if ACP was discontinued. And so this begs the question, should ACP be forgotten as an era now that it has ended, or should ACP be brought back? This is the policy question I'm trying to address today. So there are 4 policy options I'm considering. The first is leaving the status quo. That is, do nothing. Do not bring back ACP, but optimize and leverage existing initiatives within the Universal Service Funds to bridge the digital divide. The second is to decentralize the broadband provision to states. And the third is to incorporate ACP within the Universal Service Funds, USF, which would mean bringing back ACP. The third option would mean pursuing the initial or the previous way in which ACP was funded, but now through a new means or by setting new eligibility criteria that would have bipartisan support. Due to limited time, I'm going to be focusing on two of these options. The first option is the status quo. Can the current Universal Service Fund bridge the digital divide? The USF, which is the Universal Service Fund, is made up of contributions from telecommunications providers based on a certain percentage of their revenues. And this generates about 8.8 billion annually. USF currently supports 4 programs, one of which is Lifeline. Lifeline is one of the programs that is also very similar to ACP. However, it provides less subsidy or discounts to low-income earners, and so it reaches fewer number of people. And so the question is, would this approach, leaving it at the status quo, would it cater to the 23 million people that once benefited from ACP? The second option is incorporating ACP within USF. This option means rolling Lifeline, which I just talked about, into ACP and defining a new eligibility criteria. To achieve this option, it would mean we would have to focus on 3 different areas. First, try to generate funds from stakeholders. As I mentioned, USF has a budget of $8 billion annually, and this is approximately the same amount that it costs to provide ACP. And incorporating ACP within USF would mean getting more funds or generating more funds from stakeholders to fund this program. To do this, we would get the aim would be to get funds from existing USF contributors, which are telecommunications providers, but also expanding the contribution base to include large technology companies with substantial digital advertising revenues. Through these, we might be able, or we should be able to sustainably fund the USF. And while we have enough sufficient fund in the USF, we would be able to support ACP and other programs within USF. And in supporting ACP, the recommendation would be rolling Lifeline into ACP. Lifeline currently exists within USF, and as I mentioned, it is an inefficient program that reaches fewer number of people. By rolling Lifeline into ACP, it would mean only ACP would exist. But also, we would have to define new eligibility criteria for ACP. So initially, ACP provided $30 across different households and $75 for households within the tribal lands. This new approach would ensure that it will be based on needs, allocating $20, for example, to a certain group, 25 to another group, and $30 to another group. And so this would allow for more efficient allocation of the funds that we now have in USF. As you might have guessed, the latter option seems to be more feasible and viable, and it is the recommended option. The major wins that these options have is there will no longer be reliance on congressional appropriation, and it will require less complex legislative process. Also, USF's existing structure can help adequately accommodate ACP, and rolling Lifeline into ACP will allow for more operating efficiency and equity. But there are also key challenges to focus on, and which borders around funding and staff training. The first is the shrinking contribution base. As I mentioned, USF is made up of funds, telecommunication providers. So how do we ensure that these funds continue to increase? The second is, how do we get buy-ins from tech companies who might not want to be a part of this contribution? And also, we need to ensure that there is sufficient staffing requirements to meet this new or proposed recommended solution. And what does this mean for us? In conclusion, there are two key takeaways that I would want us to focus on, which is the challenges highlighted by ACP are not just unique to the US. There are similar issues worldwide that affecting millions of people. So this is a case study that helps to show that not only does this problem manifest in global south, it also manifests in global north and should be considered as a global issue. The second is ICANN, as the champion of one world, one internet, can leverage its position to influence big tech companies and ISP programs to encourage them to advocate and continually and actively support initiatives that enhance internet access and affordability globally, such as the ACP. And I believe that this case study and the recommendation may serve as a template within other contexts. Thank you.
Great job, Bolu. Thank you. Any questions for Bolu in the audience? We'll start with Khadija. Khadija, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Bolu, for your presentation. That was really, really interesting. I wanted to ask, given that there will be new tiers in this proposed rolling lifeline into this revitalized ACP, do you see that potentially having a negative effect on the amount of people who can benefit? So, like having to prove needs-based, would that ultimately result in fewer people benefiting than originally did under the non-tiered ACP?
Thank you for that interesting question. Definitely, it's going to limit the number of people that have access or that get access to this program, but it is still going to benefit a lot more people compared to the existing Lifeline program that reaches just a few number of people. As I mentioned, about 23 million people were enrolled in ACP. Estimating the number of people that gets to participate using this tiered eligibility approach, you can reach about 16 million. I kind of did calculations before. Number of people. This still does not meet the existing number of people, but it is sufficient and it is enough number of people. Yeah, that is what I address. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions for Bolu? Alfredo, go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation. It was really interesting. I don't know if you're aware of the congressional situation right now, and especially with the new president we have in the States. I'm a citizen of the United States, by the way. I've been actively involved in the ACP and all these other programs because in Puerto Rico we had a huge, and we still have, because of the hurricanes that we had in 2017 and the earthquakes we had before the pandemic began. So my question for you is, how do you think that the political situation and the lack of knowledge in the Congress people could affect your proposal?
Thank you very much for that question. That's very interesting. Of course, we all know what's going on politically right now. And in my recommendation, you would recall that one of the things I mentioned is if we implement this approach, that is incorporating ACP within USF, it would mean we would no longer rely on congressional appropriation. However, we cannot totally or outrightly remove the Congress from getting involved in it. Recently, before now, the Fifth Circuit Court declared USF as unconstitutional. So there's been a lot of political issues around it. But I think that ultimately, and that is why this has been presented here to a larger audience, if stakeholders can acknowledge the importance of this program, what it does, and why many low-income earners should have access to the internet, they can make it a priority, and we can all continue to lend our voices to ensure that we advocate for these groups, for them to be involved, but also have access to affordable internet. So yeah, the political issues will always be there, but the more we lend our voices, the more we might be able to push for changes.